as we talk about the situation in the Middle East, and you and I, we talked over the situation with Rafik Hariri, and we talked about that was one of the main points that led to the situation in Syria today, which America and Israel are trying to benefit in their plans to move ultimately against Iran, because they see Iran as the underbelly, the strong underbelly of both Russia and China. But I wanted to go back to something. Why do you think that most people do not give Obama the credit that he deserves about helping to implement these moves? Because remember, as you and I talked about, Cheney and the rest of them were under the George Bush Jr. administration, and Mr. General Wesley Clark, who to me made some real bad moves himself when America bombed Yugoslavia, and the Russians sent paratroops into one of the areas that was of the former Yugoslavia, and he wanted to bomb the Russians, and there was a British general who would not go ahead with the order because he said it would start World War III. But Mr. Clark himself comes out and says that when he was visiting the Pentagon, they talked about America bombing these 7 nations in 5 years. And I'm going to bring this up, and then I'll get to the point of this, because you were talking about this, but I'm going to see if I can bring this in so that you can hear it. Because first let me bring something up, because YouTube, you know how YouTube is. So let me put a 16-second disclaimer up first. Here we are here. Okay, now I'm hoping that you'll be able to hear it good. This is General Wesley Clark, and this is what he has to say. Let me try to turn this up louder. Okay, here we are.
Iraq, not Iran. I knew why, because I'd been through the Pentagon right after 9/11. About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon. I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the joint staff who used to work for me. And one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, No. He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al Qaeda?" He said, "I don't know." He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper. He said, I just got this down from upstairs from the Secretary of Defense office today. And he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran." I said, "Is it classified?" He said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Well, don't show it to me." And I saw him a year or so ago, and I said, "You remember that?" He said, "Sir, I didn't show you that memo. I didn't show it to you."
So this comes from a man who was once the NATO Supreme Allied Commander, meaning that he was over all U.S. and NATO troops. And he comes out and he says that these are the 7 nations, and all of the nations except for Iran has been hit. And the a few of them were hit under Obama. Why is it always going back to Bush and skipping over Obama? Because remember that America said that for them to get a good foothold into Africa, they must take out Libya. And none of this gets talked about. And all of these nations being strategically taken out is a part of a greater plan to go after Iran in their desires to weaken Russia and China. What do you have to say about it?
Well, if you want to give Obama credit or blame, you can give him credit for probably being actually a better strategist than the presidents that preceded and followed him. So if you want to give him blame, you can say that he did all of these terrible things in pursuit of the same terrible goals as the others. So he